The garage door code was something only 3 people in the world knew: me, my wife, and my father-in-law, who'd helped me install the system 7 years ago and never once used it without calling first. So when I pulled into the driveway at 2:47 on a Friday afternoon, 3 days earlier than anyone expected me, and saw a silver Tacoma parked inside my garage with the door left half open, I didn't move for a long moment. I just sat in my rental car with the engine running, staring at it. I'd been traveling for work since my daughter was in 3rd grade. Structural engineering doesn't care about school plays or anniversaries. I'd missed more dinners than I could count, more bedtimes than I want to admit. My wife, we'd been married 11 years. She used to joke that she was basically a single mom, with a husband who sent money and showed up for the holidays. I used to laugh at that. I thought it was a joke. The Tacoma was silver, maybe 4 or 5 years old, a contractor sticker on the rear window for some HVAC company I didn't recognize. I sat there maybe 90 seconds before I turned off the engine and got out quietly, not because I had a plan. I didn't have any plan. I just didn't want to make noise yet, and I couldn't tell you exactly why. I walked around to the side yard and let myself in through the back door with my key. The house was quiet. I could hear the ceiling fan in the living room, the one my wife had been asking me to replace for 2 years, because it made a clicking noise on the high setting. It was on high. I stood in the kitchen and listened. Then I heard her laugh, coming from upstairs. That specific laugh, not the polite one she used at dinner parties, the real one, the one that meant she was genuinely relaxed and happy. I hadn't heard that laugh in a long time, maybe longer than I'd realized. I didn't go upstairs. I don't know why, exactly. Part of me already knew. Part of me wasn't ready to know with certainty. I walked back into the kitchen and sat down at the table and looked at the fruit bowl she kept on the counter. Always had to have fresh fruit in the house, that was her thing, even when we were broke in the early years. And I thought about how strange it was that a person could live with someone for 11 years and still not fully understand what was happening right in front of them. I heard movement, footsteps, the shower turning on. I got up, walked to the garage, looked at the Tacoma for another minute, checked the registration in the glove box. The name on it meant nothing to me. A man I'd never heard of with an address about 20 minutes away. I took a photo of it with my phone. Then I walked back inside and sat at the kitchen table again and waited. He came down 20 minutes later. He was about my age, maybe a couple years younger. Built like someone who did physical work for a living. Thick through the shoulders, calloused hands, wearing a t-shirt that had a faded logo on it. He walked into the kitchen and stopped cold when he saw me. We looked at each other for what felt like a very long time. "You must be the husband," he said finally. I didn't say anything. He had the decency to look genuinely ashamed. Not panicked, not combative. Ashamed. He set his keys down on the counter like he was surrendering them. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't know it was this serious. I want you to know that. She told me." He stopped. "It doesn't matter what she told me. I'm sorry." He walked out through the garage. I heard his truck back out and leave. My wife came downstairs 5 minutes later in a robe, wet hair, and she walked into the kitchen and saw me, and her face went through about 6 different expressions in the space of 2 seconds. She landed on something that looked like grief, which surprised me. I'd expected anger or deflection. Instead, she just stood there and looked at me the way someone looks when they've been caught at something they were going to have to confess eventually anyway. "How long?" I asked. She sat down. "About 8 months. 8 months. I'd been flying home every 2 weeks for 11 years. 8 months of whatever this was happening in my house, in my garage, with my garage code. "Does anyone know?" I asked. She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. "Who?" I said. "My sister knows. Her sister. Who'd had dinner with us in March. Who'd texted me happy birthday in April. Who'd sat across from me at Easter and looked me in the eye and asked how work was going. Anyone else?" Another hesitation. "Your best friend," she said. "He figured it out. He didn't say anything, because he didn't want to get involved." "My best friend. We'd been close since college. He was the best man at my wedding. He'd held my daughter the day she was born and cried, actual tears standing in that hospital room. He hadn't wanted to get involved." I stood up from the table. I didn't yell. I'm not a yeller. I've never once in my life thrown something or broken something in anger, and I didn't then either. I just looked at her for a moment and thought about the specific and particular cruelty of being the last person in your own life to know something. "I'm going to stay at a hotel tonight," I said. "Don't call me." I packed a bag and I left. What I didn't do that night, which was what I would have done 11 years ago, was call my best friend. I almost did. I had his name on my screen 3 different times, but I put the phone down each time. Something had shifted in me, some fundamental understanding of who was actually in my corner, and I needed to sit with that before I did anything else. I called my brother instead. He's 5 years older than me, divorced himself, And he has a quality I've always admired, which is that he doesn't tell you what you want to hear. He tells you what he actually thinks. He answered on the second ring. I told him everything. He was quiet for a while. Get a lawyer before you do anything else, he said. Don't confront her again. Don't call the guy. Don't call your friend. Don't move money. Just get a lawyer and let them tell you what to do in what order. I know, I said. Do you? Because your instinct right now is going to be to either blow everything up or try to fix it. Both of those are wrong. You need information first. He was right. He's almost always right, my brother, which is one of the more annoying things about him. I didn't sleep much that night. I lay in the hotel bed and stared at the ceiling and thought about the timeline. 8 months. Our anniversary was in that window. We'd gone to dinner, the two of us, and she'd reached across the table and held my hand and said she was proud of us. 8 months. My daughter's birthday was in that window. I'd flown home for it, taken 2 days off that I didn't really have to spare, and my wife had made her famous lemon cake, and we'd all sat in the backyard, and my daughter had laughed, and my wife had put her head on my shoulder, and I had genuinely thought, this is good, this is a good life. 8 months. The next morning I called an attorney. She was recommended by a colleague whose own divorce had been handled cleanly and without catastrophe, which felt like the bar I was aiming for. I explained the situation. She was direct, practical, and didn't waste any of my time on sympathy, which was exactly what I needed. Document everything you can remember about the timeline, she said. Don't discuss finances with your wife yet. Don't move money, but do get a clear picture of what's where, and don't tell her you've hired me. I went back to work that week. I had a project deadline that didn't care about my personal life, which was almost a relief, somewhere to put my attention that had nothing to do with any of this. My wife texted me twice. I replied briefly, enough to keep the temperature low. I wasn't ready to have the next conversation yet, and my attorney had told me not to. What I did over the next several weeks was collect information. Not in a dramatic way, nothing like that, just paying attention. I looked at bank statements I had access to anyway. I looked at our shared accounts. I found 3 months of cash withdrawals that didn't match anything in our regular spending. Not huge amounts, a couple hundred here and there, but consistent. I wrote it all down and sent it to my attorney. I also found out more about the man. Not from snooping, exactly. He had a business, and the business had a website, and the website had his name on it. I showed it to my attorney. She advised me not to do anything with it. The hardest part of those weeks wasn't the anger. The anger was actually manageable, which surprised me. The hardest part was the grief. Specifically, grieving something that I wasn't sure had existed the way I remembered it. 11 years, a daughter who was about to turn 9, a house that we'd bought together and renovated together, the garage door code that only 3 people knew. All of it now had a different texture. I kept reaching for the memory of something good and finding that it felt different in my hand than it used to. My brother called me every few days. He didn't push. He just checked in. My best friend texted me twice during that period. Normal texts, a link to something funny, a check-in about a football game we usually watched together. I didn't respond. He texted a third time. Hey, everything okay? Haven't heard from you. I put the phone face down and didn't pick it up again for 2 days. He knew. He'd known for God knows how long. And he'd made a choice, and the choice he made told me everything I needed to know about where I actually stood with him. 6 weeks after I came home to find a stranger's truck in my garage, my attorney told me we were ready to move. I flew home on a Thursday. My wife thought I was coming home Friday evening. I'd told her that. My daughter was with my in-laws for the week, which was something my wife had arranged, and which I was at that point deeply grateful for. I came in through the front door with my key and my wife was in the kitchen, and she looked up and something moved across her face. Not quite guilt, not anymore. More like someone who'd been dreading a specific moment and was now watching it arrive. I think we should talk, she said. I know, I said, but I need you to listen first. I sat down at the kitchen table, same fruit bowl, and I told her that I had retained an attorney, that the process had begun, and that I was asking her to please not make this harder than it needed to be for our daughter's sake. I told her what my attorney had advised me to say and nothing more than that. My voice was steady. I'd practiced, and I was glad I had. She cried. I want to be honest about that. She cried in a way that looked genuine, and I'm not sure it wasn't. People can regret things and still have done them. Those two facts can coexist. I didn't comfort her, but I didn't say anything cruel either. I just sat there and let her cry and waited. I'm sorry, she said. It doesn't, I said. But I believe you. I think that's the truest thing I said that night. I did believe she was sorry. I just also understood that sorry is an emotion, not a solution, and that the shape of my life going forward had to be built on something more reliable than her regret. The next morning, I called my best friend. He answered immediately, like he'd been waiting for the call. "Hey," he said, and there was something careful in his voice. He already knew something was coming. "I know that you knew," I said. "I'm not calling to fight about it. I just need you to know that I know, and that we're done." A pause. I didn't know how to. "I'm not asking for an explanation," I said. "I just wanted you to know." I hung up. My brother asked me later if that felt good. I told him it felt like closing a door that should have been closed a long time ago, and that was about as much satisfaction as I was going to get out of it. He says that sounded about right. The divorce took 8 months. There's something almost poetic about that number, though I try not to think about it too much. My attorney was excellent. The settlement was fair, though fair felt like a strange word to apply to the process of dividing up a life. I kept the house. My name had been on the mortgage from the beginning, and I'd made the payments for 11 years while I was gone 40 weeks out of the year. And my daughter stayed in her school, in her room, in her routines. My wife moved into an apartment about 15 minutes away. She sees our daughter regularly. We have a schedule, and she keeps it. Whatever else happened between us, she's still her mother and she loves her. And I've tried to keep that sentence in the front of my mind every time I have to talk to her about pickup times and school events and whether our daughter needs new shoes. The man with the silver Tacoma, I found out later from my attorney that he'd ended things with my wife around the time the divorce proceedings started. She'd told a mutual acquaintance who'd told someone else, and it had made its way back to me the way these things do. I don't know what I felt about that. Not satisfaction, exactly. More like a quiet acknowledgement that choices have weight. My daughter asked me, once, why we didn't all live together anymore. She was 9. I told her that sometimes grown-ups change in ways that make it better for everyone to live in different places, and that nothing about it had anything to do with her, and that she was loved more than she would ever fully understand. She looked at me for a long moment the way kids do when they're deciding whether to push further, and then she leaned into me, and I put my arm around her, and we sat there for a while without saying anything else. That was the moment I understood I was going to be okay. Not happy yet, not fully, but okay in the sense that mattered, present, clear, functional, still capable of being the person she needed me to be. My brother came to visit about 6 months after everything was finalized. We sat on the back porch with 2 beers and didn't talk about any of it for most of the evening. We talked about work, about a fishing trip we'd been saying we would take for 15 years and never had. Somewhere around the second beer, he said, "You held up well. A lot of guys don't." I thought about that, the garage door half open, the silver truck, sitting at the kitchen table with the fruit bowl while the ceiling fan clicked on high. "I had good information," I said, and I listened to it. He nodded. We didn't say anything else about it. There are things I know now that I wish I'd known earlier. Not about my wife. I don't think there was a sign I missed, or if there was, I'm not sure knowing it sooner would have changed the outcome. What I know now is about the people around you and the specific weight of their silence. Who chooses not to tell you something and why. What that choice costs you and what it costs them. Not everyone is going to be honest with you, and the ones who aren't are still going to show up to your birthday party and send you links to funny videos and say they've been meaning to call. My best friend sent me a long email about 2 months after I hung up on him. Explained himself, apologized, talked about not wanting to interfere in a marriage. I read it once. It was tell he meant it. I didn't reply. Some doors, once they're closed, need to stay that way. My daughter is 10 now. She's good. She does this thing where she gets very serious when she's explaining something she cares about, holds up one finger at a time to make her points, and every time she does it, I have to keep my face neutral because she looks exactly like I did at that age, apparently, and it breaks my heart open in the best possible way. Last fall, I took a project that kept me closer to home, less travel. I'm at her school pickup more often now. I know the names of her teachers and most of her friends, and I know which kids she likes and which one she thinks is annoying, and I know these things because I am there to be told them. I don't think I could have told you, a year ago, what I actually wanted my life to look like. I'd been moving so fast for so long, keeping the financial machinery running, that I'd stopped looking at anything other than the next deadline, the next flight, the next reason to be somewhere else. I'm still working, still good at my job, but I turned down a promotion last spring that would have put me back on a travel schedule I didn't want anymore. My boss was surprised. I told him I was restructuring my priorities. He asked if everything was okay. I told him everything was better than it had been in a long time, and I meant it. The garage code is different now. I changed it the weekend after I moved back in. Nobody knows it except me and my daughter, and she knows it for emergencies, and she knows that means actual emergencies. And she has never once abused that. She's a good kid. She got that honestly. And that's enough, more than enough, to build everything else around.